And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
MECO down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
125! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. Keep red. Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening / morning. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is getting ready to launch its first batch of Kuiper internet satellites. And dare I say, as a result of that, this is not your ordinary Kuiper launch. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be your host for today's KF-1 mission. And of course, I am not alone. I am with you in chat with all the 5x5s that I see. And joining me on the air tonight is Cody. How is it going, Cody?
It's going quite well. We got a clean looking Falcon 9 here out on the pad. Not a Starlink, not your ordinary Starlink launch here. So I'm excited to see this one go.
Another reason this is not your ordinary launch, because joining us once again from the coast that actually is launching rockets right now is D Wise. D, welcome back to the Space Coast.
Thank you very much. It has been a while since I've been here for a launch, but it is good to be back. And this is a pretty neat one to be back for, with it being a Kuiper mission on a Falcon.
Yes, it seems unprecedented, but it's not necessarily. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, as I already see Alex and Adrian loving my not your ordinary Kuiper launch comment. The first time I said that in person, Max nearly slapped me. So, I get it. And joining us for the producing side of things tonight is someone who I'm amazed is still awake. It's Carson, doing the entry earlier, and now, of course, bringing the views to you tonight for this launch. As always, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can. So, Cody, we are used to Starlink launches here from Pad 40. What's the difference with tonight's launch for the Kuiper satellites?
Right. Yes. We have a bit of a different situation here. Similar type of satellite. We got some not telecommunications, but internet satellites here for a large constellation. But of course, they're not Starlink. They're for Kuiper. So on this flight, we have 24 Kuiper satellites. They'll be going into a parking orbit of around 465 kilometers at an orbital inclination of 51.9. But yeah. This is not your ordinary Starlink, as in Amazon's launching these, right? And so there's been a little bit of discussion around, like, why are we launching on Falcon 9? Aren't they direct competitors? So I don't know if we want to discuss that now or later. But yeah, we've been seeing a lot of discussion around that.
Sure, we can absolutely discuss that. So yeah, why do we have Falcon 9 launching satellites for? Well, it's a subsidiary of Amazon, but basically Amazon.
Basically Amazon. I mean, you have the Amazon logo on the building right there. We saw this photo on X earlier today of the payload fairing being taken out of the processing facility there. The soot still on the fairing halves. But yeah, this is a very interesting launch where initially when we saw Kuiper get contracts for launches, originally, Falcon 9 had no launches in those contracts. So we originally saw that there were 9 Atlas V launches, 38 Vulcan flights, 18 Ariane 6 flights, and then 12 New Glenn flights with the option for more in the future. And so investors and Amazon brought up points of, hey, Falcon 9 is a vehicle which is cheap and is very reliable. Why isn't this vehicle being used? So Amazon went back and they ordered 3 Falcon 9 launches to take these Kuiper satellites up. But yeah, there's some thoughts of like, well, Starlink has a large market share right now in the market, so SpaceX might not be so worried about Kuiper launching on Falcon 9, and it is another payload they take up. And the thing is, SpaceX already carries a ton of communication satellites already, so they might not be so worried about communication. It is the fact that originally Kuiper did not order these Falcon 9 launches, seeming like they just purposely did not want to fly on Falcon there.
Right. We've had Eutelsat's OneWeb. We had SES with theirs. We've seen them launch Viasats. We had the O3b mPOWER satellites. All of those are internet communication networks. And in fact, those are companies that are kind of in battles right now to actually get some of the bandwidth that SpaceX is using. So, yeah, they've done it before. They are indeed doing it again this time now for Amazon. Plus, they have a deadline to hit. And we'll talk more about that, I think, in a little bit, and the other launch vehicles. But let's talk about this particular launch vehicle, D. That's a clean-looking booster.
It sure is. So for tonight's mission, they are using B1096. We believe, we don't have a for sure guarantee on that number, but that is the best of our knowledge that it is B1096, and it is a first flight booster. It is incredibly, incredibly clean. And of course, it's launching off of Slick 40 today, and it will be landing out on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas in the Atlantic Ocean.
There you go. And we're in terms of trajectory tonight, where would people be able to see it?
Well, it looks like that along that eastern seaboard there at the 50, because we are going in a 51.9 degree inclination orbit there, a lot of people along the east coast of the United States are going to be able to see this launch, like for a lot of Starlink launches that go at a very similar trajectory there. So if you're in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, that region, you should be able to see this launch just out there on the east coast.
Yep. So again, this feels a lot like a Starlink launch. It is internet satellites. It is going to the northeast. Honestly, the deployment timeline is kind of similar in a way as well. Normally, the Starlink satellites are deployed about 50-ish minutes after launch. These are deployed 56 minutes after launch. The other ones have about 2 to 3 second burn to place them into their final orbit. These have a 3-second burn to place them into their final orbit. There are a lot of similarities between the Starlink and the Kuiper trajectories, but Cody, the shells are slightly different though, right?
Yeah, the orbital shells for Kuiper are in a different sort of orbit here, with the difference being, you have the inclination. For Kuiper, they have shells at both 590, 610, and 630 kilometers, with this one going to 630 kilometers for this shell here.
And so D, weather-wise, being out there, besides being swarmed by 20 million mosquitoes, what is the weather looking like?
The weather is actually looking fantastic. So yesterday morning, the 45th Weather Squadron put out their launch mission forecast, and at the time they predicted a 20% probability of violation, with the concern being clouds, both the Anvil clouds rule and the cumulus clouds rule. With that said, however, the weather has really cleared up throughout the day. It is really just a bright, starry night this evening, so those shouldn't be too much of a concern. And of course, they also look at additional risks, including upper-level wind shear, booster recovery, and solar activity, and those are all low concerns. So the weather, as you mentioned, minus the mosquitoes here, which are only a problem for me, not the rocket, the weather is fantastic for a launch I guess it is this morning now.
Yep. It is indeed this morning now. And yeah, there's some storm systems and things, but this early in the morning at this time, not really a concern for today's flight. And the mosquitoes, yes, are indeed welcoming you back in full force. Also in full force already is the support. Bideford, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Nibbles, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership as well. And Mr. Fluffy saying, Sawyer, Best Coast already launched today, smirk. Wait, did it? I couldn't see anything. All I saw was fog. Anyway, thank you very much for the support. I appreciate it.
Wasn't that launch yesterday?
I mean,
Hey, it's still today over here. Over here on the West Coast, it's still today.
but compared to this one, yeah, if we're talking UTC, it was yesterday. So, anyway.
That's fair.
Here's a good question from Severin. So we had the graphic up there, and we actually saw the numbers of the fairings this time. So our amazing team that keeps track of all of that got the fairing numbers, and on the graphic it said passive and active. Do you want to try this one, Cody? What's the difference between the passive and the active?
Well, whenever you have your fairing halves clamped together, right, we need a way for one half to clamp onto the other. So much in the way of early docking systems had a passive and active end, the fairing halves on the Falcon 9 do a very similar thing where you have one end that is latching, one end that is holding on. And so you need one of each of these fairing halves. So you can't really interchange and have 2 active sides and 2 passive sides. But yeah, basically just it's the way that the connectors are set up to ensure that the fairing remains, well, closed in flight and then is able to be released and separated when they need to do that.
Yep. And so basically one pushes and then the other gets pushed. Just like with the docking systems, you have the one that goes towards, like for the station, you have the one that goes into the docking adapter, and then the one on the ISS then clamps down on it and holds it in place. So that is the active and the passive. And you can see the numbers there, numbers 155 and 168 as your fairing halves on this, which the contrast of the sooty booster or the sooty fairing halves to the clean booster is a fun one. Let's see here. Some more questions. We've got one here from Burninator. There we go. And I'll throw this one to you, D. They're asking, what's the difference between SLIC and LC designations of the launch pads? As this is SLIC 40, and next door is LC 39A.
Yeah, so it goes back to sort of the Space Force, Air Force, and NASA designations. So that was an important specifier for the pads on like the Air Force sides, but over on the NASA sides, not so much. That's my understanding of it. I have definitely gotten them wrong for certain pads in the past. If you have any more detail you want to share there, Sawyer, I would certainly love to hear it.
I wish I did. A lot of it's just semantics. It's the way it was. But yes, regardless of whether it makes sense or not, people will absolutely roast you on the internet and in person if you get it wrong. Ask me how I know. Let's see. Here's one from the Angry Engineer saying, if they launch Kuiper on Vulcan, how many satellites will fit in its fairing? I don't think we've seen a number yet unless Alex comes into the back channel with something, but it's worth noting that there are still more vehicles, 3 of them, to launch Kuiper that have not launched them yet. Right, Cody?
Yeah, the really cool thing with Kuiper is compared to a contract that might, get a few maybe Vulcan flights and a few Falcon flights, the Kuiper contracts are very wide and varied. So, like I said before, we saw initially there were 9 Atlas V contracts, 38 Vulcan flights, 18 Ariane 6 flights, 12 New Glenn flights, and then on top of it, the 3 more Falcon 9 flights we see here. Part of that has to do with the need to actually launch all these satellites. They have a lot of satellites they need to launch before their deadline. In the world of signal regulation, through the FCC, Amazon is required to launch 50% of its constellation by next year, July 2026, which means that they need to launch. Well, after this launch, they'll have to launch 1,538 Kuiper satellites. So quite a few in just 1 year. That's why they're contracting out to so many launchers, right? They're trying to get a ton. But yeah, we've not yet seen a Vulcan flight or a New Glenn flight. We haven't seen an Ariane 6 flight with Kuiper either, I don't believe. So those are going to be some interesting ones to see. But it's very cool that it's so very wide and varied with the amount of launch vehicles for this contract.
Yeah, it is worth noting that 2 of the launch vehicles that have yet to fly have only flown once, and the other one has only flown twice. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it is a bit concerning looking at the clock for Kuiper, seeing that they need to meet that 50% deadline by July 2026. Now, they could potentially get some sort of extension on that. But yeah, we really need to see flight cadence go super high up for something like New Glenn and Vulcan and Ariane to be able to fully see the constellation be thrown up there. But I'm seeing in the back channel, New Glenn should be able to carry about 49 satellites, and then initially for these launches, hopefully with more of those more New Glens being available, we'll be able to see the rate of launch go up quicker.
Yeah, because again, at this point, we believe. All right, there we go. Alex saying Vulcan, we believe, is 45, but yeah, it's worth realizing the fact that, as you pointed out here, New Glenn has flown once and still has to get its certification. You have Vulcan that just got its certification after 2 cert flights, and now the next flight that it has is going to be a Space Force or DoD mission. So that will be the next flight for Vulcan, and there are only 7 more flights planned for Atlas, and they can't buy any more because all of the Atlases are made and accounted for and done. So it's all reliant upon Vulcan, and then eventually that New Glenn ramp up performance, and Ariane exists. I'll say that. You know my thoughts.
I really do think that the way that this can be saved is through the ramp up of New Glenn, right? Having a reusable launch vehicle on the roster for these contracts is huge, in that if they're able to successfully ramp up their flight cadence and reuse those first stages, they really could start throwing out a lot of these Kuiper satellites, especially with the super large payload capacity of New Glenn there.
Oh, I'm so ready for that. Plus, we absolutely want more New Glenn flights because Flight 1 looked spectacular and I wasn't there for it. I want to be there for the next ones. So there you go. Let's keep going with more of your questions. Severin asking, D, will this have a second upper stage burn like Starlink launches do?
I am not sure right off the top of my head. So
Yes,
I will have to
it
take a look
does.
on that.
Very good answer, D. I know you're out in the field work with camera stuff there as well. But yes, there is indeed a burn. And as we were kind of talking about earlier, it's very similar to what we see for the Falcon 9 Starlink launches. So that one launches at 50. Those deploy usually at about, burn at about 50 minutes. And then 52 is when they will launch on this one. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. If I did, D, I didn't realize I didn't hear your voice there.
That's all good.
Let's see here. Oh gosh, Kevin Michael Reed. Does this Falcon 9 have a Bez dispenser? Boo. Carson, do you have a soundboard that we can boo him? That was as in Jeff Bezos and a Pez dispenser. It's a Pez. If this deploys like a Pez dispenser, we have bigger problems, Kevin. Okay.
I wish we had face cams so you could see my face. I'm very disappointed in Kevin. Very.
Yeah, be glad there's no camera on me right now. I'll say that. But One thing that we can keep an eye on right now, though, is the timeline, because we are getting into the juicy part of the countdown. Cody, do you want to walk us through what we have coming up here?
I would love to walk through what we have coming up here. So, in just about a minute and a half, we're going to get the launch director verifying go for propellant load onto the vehicle. That's when they're going to start to load the RP1 and liquid oxygen onto the vehicle, onto that first stage. We'll see that loading begin at T-minus 35 minutes. We'll start to see a little bit of frost build up on the stage there. As those cryogenic propellants get to be loaded in, we'll start to see, the air around it just condense because of how super chilled those propellants are. And then we'll also start to see RP1 load begin on the second stage. At T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds, we'll get our iconic vent. And that's an indicator that we are go for launch. And so the point of that 20-minute, 20-second vent is to pre-chill the lines, make sure that all the lines are prepared. All the lines on the strong back are prepared to allow the cryogenic propellants to flow through into that second stage. At T-minus 16 minutes after that LOX chill down, we'll start to see LOX begin to be loaded into that second stage. At T-minus 7 minutes, we'll get our engine chill start. 5 minutes, we'll get our strong back retract, just getting out of the way initially there. 3 minutes, we'll have our LOX load complete for our first stage. At 2 minutes, 10 seconds, we'll get our second stage LOX load complete. 1 minute, we'll get our Falcon 9 startup. Tank pressurization. 45 seconds, we'll get our the launch director will verify go for launch, and then we'll see the brilliant flash there of the engines, and we'll see this thing fly.
There we go. So hopefully at this point that verification is underway, and if so, they'll start fueling at 35 minutes, and we will of course keep an eye out on the base of the rocket for that. It might be a little bit trickier though, given the fact that, again, this is a new booster, and there's less soot to be able to see the frost forming on, so we will have to keep a closer eye than usual on this one. Let's see. Here's a question from Bideford with a $25 super chat with it. Thank you so much for that, Bideford. We appreciate it. As always, love having you here. She's asking, does anyone know what the cost ratio is among all the others compared to SpaceX? Are we talking about the cost of launchers in general, or in particular for Amazon Kuiper on SpaceX? Because, I mean, this goes back to the reason why they're launching on this, the fact that you had the lawsuit going from some of the shareholders, basically, of, hey, you've got a whole bunch of them on New Glenn, you've got them on Vulcan, you've got them on Atlas. These are expensive rockets. They're not as reusable. Where's SpaceX, the current leading launch provider in this list? And again, this was 21, 22. So even then, they were still launching at quite a cadence, although not what they are now. But that's when they said, all right, fine, we'll throw in 3 total flights here on Falcon 9. So in terms of the cost itself, Elon has said in the past that for other internet satellite providers versus Starlink, they said that the cost is exactly the same. He said, quote, same price as other customers, no favoritism to our own system. And that's in regards to Starlink versus others. So, money talks. Did I miss anything?
I do wonder if that applies to New Glenn, right? Because New Glenn being associated with Amazon, they could get a better deal out of this. I think that probably Falcon 9 has the best cost benefit here out of every vehicle just because of the rate of flight, how operational it is. But I'd imagine that New Glenn is probably in there in second, even though it's a super expensive, super large launch vehicle. They're able to get a lot of satellites up at once. And with that potential reusability and a deal being struck between the companies that are working together, I'd imagine that New Glenn is probably pretty competitive in price there. But then you have Vulcan taking up so many more launches than New Glenn. So it is really interesting there to think about, well, we don't exactly know the prices, but we can see how many launches we're getting out of them. There might have been some deals struck between with this many Vulcan launches, we're able to give you this deal. So we just don't know really the cost benefit there.
I think another thing that's worth pointing out is the number of satellites being launched on each. So I think that's also, when you're thinking about the price, currently Falcon 9 can only launch 24 of these satellites. That's what's launching tonight. The Atlas V flights up till now, and for the rest of them, will launch 27, and that is in the Bruiser, the 551, the most powerful Atlas configuration that they are currently, well, that they're flying in general because it's the last ones. But when you compare that to the 45 that Vulcan will carry on each of theirs, and the fact that Vulcan currently has a slightly faster turnaround pace, given that they've flown twice, going on 3 times. New Glenn will start off at 49 and then will eventually get the upgraded performance and then can fly 61 at a time. So if you're talking double the cost or triple the cost, you're talking almost triple the number of satellites being launched. So I'm sure that plays a role in it. So unfortunately, not all the numbers are public, but in this case, Bideford, I mean, the money talks in terms of why they're actually flying some on SpaceX, but the cost that SpaceX offers is basically the same. Let's see here. There was another good question that I saw, and that was Severin asking, when will Kuiper Internet be available for purchase, and how many satellites will need to be launched before that happens? Cody, how many do they need?
I'm not too sure. I know the numbers for the how much they need to actually get legally, but I'm not actually sure operationally wise how many they need to do. I know they've been doing a little bit of testing with just a few satellites. I know way back when they had just 2 satellites, they were able to get a little bit of testing, but obviously they can't do operational missions with just 2 satellites. And with this being a low altitude constellation, much like Starlink, they're going to need quite a few.
If I recall, I believe it was closer to 800-ish satellites initially. I'm trying to remember. Again, I'm sure the back channel will let me know if I'm wrong, but I recall reading somewhere around 600 to 800 satellites needed for them to actually start providing service.
Yeah, that sounds relatively believable. If you imagine like a small constellation, very low altitude. Yeah, that sounds about right.
So we still have all of that to look forward to. And again, at this point, competition is a good thing. The more, right, more internet satellites, more better for connection, at least for people on the ground. You get competitive pricing. That's what Ryan Caton was using till he got his fiber. Do you know Ryan has fiber? So, D, I know it's a little hard to see with the clean booster. Any indication of frost forming on the bottom there?
I haven't caught any quite yet, but like you said, it is a very clean booster, so it might be a little bit harder to see. And now's the time to really be looking for that frost to start. And the main sign might actually be sort of the condensation coming off of the booster, contrasting with the night sky here. That might be the easiest way to tell when that frost starts.
Yeah, it looks like I'm starting to see some actually. Think I could see a little bit by the branch there on the left side of the bottom of the booster. Could
I
just
see
be
that
my
as well. A
assumption.
little bit of vapor.
Yes, there it is. So Falcon 9 is being fueled, and just like all Falcon 9 launches with their load and go propellants, once they begin fueling, they are indeed committed to that T0. So they are indeed targeting about 31 minutes or so from now. And D, it's worth noting, again, this being a new booster, there were some questions of, well, which booster could this be, right? Because there was another booster that's quite different from the other Falcon 9s.
Yes, so tonight's booster, we believe, is that was B1096, but I believe it's B1095 that appears to be a Falcon Heavy core that's been converted for use in Falcon 9, or I believe side booster there, but meant for Falcon Heavy and being used as a Falcon 9 beforehand, which is interesting to see because it's like requiring more structures and the like, but it means they can get some flights off with this booster before expending it with a Falcon Heavy mission.
Yep, be 1091. So it's kind of nice to see the comparison between the two, and I'm sure it will be quite the view once we see 1091 fly as its single stick configuration. Um, let's see. Here is one from Space Marshal. I'm not sure we have a answer to this, but we kind of know the deadline. I'm sure we can do some quick math. Space Marshal's wondering, Cody, if they do hit the launch cadence needed to keep up their contract, how long would it take them to pass the Starlink constellation? I think quite a lot.
Yeah. So let's do a little bit of math here on stream, which is not my strong suit. So in about 12 months from now, they need to launch 1,538 satellites. So we divide that by 12. So they need to average about 128 satellites per month. And could you remind me how many satellites are in the full constellation? It's
For
it's like around
Kuiper done?
7,000 for
Are you talking about
Starlink.
Starlink? They have launched over 9,000 total, and there are still about 6,000 or 7,000 active.
Yeah. So let's call it 7,000. So we got 7,000. We divide that by 128. And we assume, not realistically, that Falcon is not going to replenish that supply of current Starlink satellites or add to the constellation. We would still be seeing, they would need about 54 months of just constant launches at the same rate of 128 satellites per month to actually beat or catch up to that Starlink launch. So I'm not too sure how realistic it is, considering that Alex mentioned this on X, in an X post. Between the two Atlas V launches for Kuiper that we've seen, Starlink launched 600 satellites, which is crazy. Right? So the rates are just so mind-bogglingly different. I don't know if they'll be able to catch up anytime soon, not until New Glenn is flying really consistently at a large pace, because I think that would be how they're able to catch up.
And even so, their initial constellation, they are currently planning on about 3,200 low Earth orbit satellites for Kuiper. And again, we're in the thousands already for Starlink, and that's before we even see any of them launch on Starship, when the numbers are going to be quite massive. And just as I say that, Alex in the back channel saying they'll be launching like 70 at a time on Starship.
Yep. And that's when the constellations get wild. You have just so many satellites packed into this one area. The bandwidth's going to be crazy on those launches there.
Yeah, the bandwidth is crazy. And the sky in general. In fact, there was a photo that was posted from the ISS, I believe it was either today or yesterday, showing the Starlink constellations over the Pacific, just how many of them there are and how it fills up the sky with all the crisscross patterns and the long exposures. It's a lot of satellites and not a lot of space. We joke about space being infinite, but not really around the Earth. Let's see. Norman with some support here saying the problem with Glenn is that it's launching every year or so. One might as well book SLS. Well, again, this is the start. I feel like it's different in the sense that you have a private company. It is not something that they're relying on Congress to get the funding for. They don't need a presidential budget to say, yes, you can keep flying. They have their private missions. They have flown the one. And we know there will be at least one more this year, and we'll see how that goes. Are they able to land the booster again? And in fact, the other important thing to note, that first mission went pretty darn flawlessly, except for that first stage landing for New Glenn's Blue Origin there. Or Blue Origin's New Glenn there. Jeez, words. So I think eventually that pace will pick up, and they've said it themselves. They're hoping for, a couple launches in a year and then working their way up from that to more.
Like, you got to put it in perspective to where SpaceX started with just a few launches every once in a while, right? The launch rate has gone insanely up. Like, everyone's been super spoiled by the sheer cadence of Falcon 9 launches. And with New Glenn being a super heavy launch vehicle, it's much larger than Falcon 9. It might be a slow start, but I think once they get going, they're going to have quite a rocket on their hands there.
Oh, absolutely. And the power of it, I love the blue color, spectacular. But yeah, it's going to be a heavy lift competitor, something that, well, I think be a competitor to Starship, and that's probably going to be their biggest competitor as things kick up. So a lot of reasons to keep an eye on the Space Coast as these all happen. So make sure that you check out Space Coast Live for all those updates. And we may or may not have a flyover where we're taking a look at Blue's progress coming out very, very soon. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Subscribe to the channel and maybe keep an eye out in the next 24 hours. Anyway, sorry if I leaked anything, Kevin. And yeah, apparently now there's a goal that I have to apologize to Kevin if we hit the super chat goal thing. No! I'd rather sing. Kevin, I would rather sing than lie on the internet to these very nice people watching tonight, okay?
I will say, Sawyer, for those who were up really late last night / early this morning for the Axiom splashdown, we may have also teased that flyover a little bit there. So that just goes to show you not to miss these late night streams.
Oh, yes. Let's see. A couple more bits of support that I want to hit here. Tech Ventures saying likelihood Falcon 9 decommissioned after a Starship. I mean, they flat out said they're going to, so I would say close to 100% is once they get Starship up and running and at a decent pace and cadence and things like that, that's when they'll start slowing down their production on Falcon 9 launches and slowing down those and moving everything over to Starship eventually. So that way they're just a single rocket company. You're not dealing with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy and Crew variant and all of that. It's just one rocket to rule them all.
Although I think realistically it will take a while. In my opinion, I think there will be a significant amount of overlap. Well, maybe not significant, but I think there will be a few years where both Starship and Falcon 9 will be operating. If you think about things like Vulcan and Atlas operating at the same time, right? We see a lot of overlap in those markets where Falcon 9 being a heavy or a medium lift launch vehicle versus the super heavy behemoth of Starship. I think there still will be a market for a little bit until those launch costs just take a nosedive with the complete reusability of Starship. So I do think there will be a little bit overlap there, though.
And hopefully by then you'll have some other competitors going. You'll get Rocket Lab with their Neutron rocket. You'll get Nova from Stoke Space, which is meant to be fully reusable. These are more kind of competitive in size range, so hopefully those will go up. And then once you get that reusability going, you can have that competitor and then hopefully rely solely on reusable rockets with the exceptions of SLS and Vulcan. Mr. Fluffy saying, how nice of Blue Origin to help fund Starship. Very funny, but again, you've got SpaceX, you've got Starlink has its own subsidiary, Amazon has its own subsidiary for Kuiper, so it's worth noting, even though we say Amazon and SpaceX, there's lots of little niche bits and bobs and names and pieces to it. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Lara Lee is saying, do all of these satellites interfere with Earth-based astronomy? And Cody, the answer to that is yes, right?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a significant amount of debate in the astronomy community, as I've seen, of mega constellations causing some issues for space observing, right, from the ground. With a low Earth, very low Earth orbit constellation, you do have to keep in mind that these satellites are going to cause reflection of light from the sun as you go over the horizon. Even though it might be dark on Earth, you're still going to see the reflection of those satellites. And just having those dots in the sky, if you're doing something like a long exposure, you could have a significant portion of your field of view taken up by those satellites. So it is something that's very important that we need to be able to maintain the incredible capability of ground-based observation while also balancing the incredible capabilities of being able to get super fast internet anywhere, right? I know in the past with earlier Starlinks, they had some mitigations put in place, like painting the bottoms a black color, I believe, or some sort of anti-reflective coating. So I'm not really sure what they've done in the future, but I'm sure that there's lots of people working in Starlink and in Kuiper R&D, just trying to make these satellites less reflective and less intrusive to that observation, because ground-based space observation is incredibly important.
Exactly. Yes, they have the reflective paint, so we don't see that. But one thing that we do see is the 20-minute, 20-second vent right on time here for Falcon 9. D, it's been a while since you've run us through this. Do you mind running us through the best vent here?
Absolutely. So of course, up to this point, they've been fueling the first stage with its liquid oxygen and liquid kerosene, but now they are getting ready to fuel the second stage with its liquid oxygen. But liquid oxygen is incredibly, incredibly cold. So before they just jump in and throw that cryogenic liquid through all that infrastructure, they want to cool it all down. They want to prevent any sort of thermal shock where expansion or compression of the pipes, tanks, infrastructure, and all that could cause cracking, wear, that sort of thing. So at the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second mark, they start this flow, venting it off to cool all of that down. And once we get closer to that 16-minute mark and a bit is when we'll see this vent stop and the liquid oxygen fueling for the second stage begin.
Here we go. Well done. Good to have you back and getting into the routine of that there. Thanks, D. But yeah, so this is fueling now continuing. So once that stops, we'll know that we are that much closer to the launch of the KF-1 mission. So that is going to be 24 satellites for Project Kuiper, not Starlink, but a competitor to Starlink for those internet satellites. And again, on a brand new booster tonight. Now, I saw someone asking, would they be able to see this on a cruise ship out near Key West? Maybe a little south, but it's worth going out to take a look. So, Cody, if people want to try and look for it tonight, what is the trajectory?
Yeah, so this trajectory is going on a pretty similar trajectory to a lot of other Starlink launches that we've seen out of Pad 40 here. This is going into, more specifically, a 51.9 degree inclination orbit. So right along the east coast of the US there. So if you're in any of those lower states you can see on screen right here on the trajectory, you'll probably be able to see the launch there high on the horizon. So if you're anywhere in that sort of general region, you could have a good chance of seeing this launch. A nice little bright glowing dot there. But yeah, just right along the East Coast. So if you're along the East Coast, take a look. Take 5 minutes, go out on your porch, go out and just take a look at the sky right there. It's a cool thing to see.
And if you do see it, take a picture and send it to us on the NSF socials. We love seeing what you guys are able to get. Some of the photos that we saw this morning from the Dragon reentry out on the West Coast were absolutely spectacular. So thank you everyone that sent those in. But yeah, we are on X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, all those. So check us out. I'm not sure what Jake just did out there, but hi Jake, thank you for making all that noise. RC Horseman gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you very much for doing that. Aloha from Kansas, love it. Becoming a Pad Ret member. Space Pope saying, be nice to KMR Sawyer, as they then go ahead and support the goal anyway. Thanks, I think. Space Pope? There is the 20-minute vent, by the way, cutting off there. So fueling now underway of the liquid oxygen there. Apocalypse Cow gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Sean O'Neill saying Joshua is so excited for this. He's crying right now. Space Pope 2. Booster 1058 3. Space Pope again with 3. I think you guys are messing up your counting, because then we go 6, and then we go 7. Oh boy. And then yeah, Aloha from space coming in as well, saying if there were a good boondocking site I could watch this from in the future. D, what are we looking at in terms of viewing sites and boondocking?
I had to look that up. But there are lots of great places to watch launches from in the area. It depends on the specific launch pad where perhaps the best place to be is, and also the time of day. For daytime launches, when it is open, Playa Linda Beach has an excellent view of 39A, 40, and the like. Of course, anywhere along US 1, you can get a view out, see those launches, and down actually at Jetty Park, which has a sort of camping and RV type facility out there. That's another great place to watch launches, especially from Slick 36. So when the next New Glenn comes up, that'll be a great place to watch. But we can't go into all of that here today. That's why you're getting a sneak preview, not a sneak preview. This video is out. You can check out this video on our channel to see how you can watch a rocket launch. And there are a ton of different opportunities to see them from anywhere around the Space Coast. But wherever you are, give it a try. Try to see them.
Yes. So yeah, for if you're doing like actual RV camping, I feel like your two best bets are going to be Cars Park and Jetty Park. Those are usually really good about kind of those camping sites there. I also had to look up boondocking. Don't worry, D. I guess I'm not really sure where there's going to be like camping sites that you can go, but in terms of public viewing areas and places where you can at least have a spot to stake camp, I guess, so to speak, in that sense, those are going to be your best bets. But check out that full video. Gabriel with a question here, not necessarily about Kuiper, but still related, saying, why does New Glenn take really long in a turnaround between launches here? I think it's worth noting that right now their turnaround time, they don't have a number because they've only launched once. It's a new rocket still, right, Cody?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a leak, but I'm writing a video script on the development of a lot of these vehicles. And so one of the things is New Glenn is a very simulation heavy development cycle, or it's not very hardware rich. So being able to go from one launch to the next, where they're trying to figure out this whole landing issue, they are going to take a while to actually get another rocket in there. They want to make sure that on this next launch, they can land that booster. And so the turnaround time could be quite a bit of time just as they're getting through that development cycle. But once they do, and they can start reusing boosters, then hopefully they're able to ramp that up a little bit. But I mean, even if you think about Starship launches, like I get it, it's very different, but there's a big delay between certain launches depending on the outcome of the flight. So kind of think about it that way, but with a little bit of a long delay just because of the development cycle of how New Glenn is made.
Exactly. And again, as they pick up pace and cadence, I think they will be able to launch a few more than that, especially as that picks up. But yeah, right now, the reason it's so slow is because they're still learning how to do it. This is their first orbital rocket. So let's see. Here's another good question. This is one, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but for the people now, they're saying, when was the last time that Falcon 9 launched a competitor's payload? It's only been a couple months. And also worth noting that the next time that they will launch a competitor's internet satellite payload after this one is Monday. That is the next O3B Empower launch, which is one of the other internet satellite competitors. So, I mean, Cody, we've talked about this before. There have been a few other providers that have launched on SpaceX's Falcon 9 that directly compete with them.
Yes, like OB3M Power, we have Intelsat. I'm forgetting some more of the specifics off the top of my head, but yeah, plenty of competitors, direct competitors to Starlink, have launched on Falcon 9 just because it's a really good launch vehicle for the price. And in the past, Elon Musk has said that pricing is the same for all competitors, which I guess kind of goes to show the belief in the Starlink program and how it's able to go up against these competitors, allowing your competitors to fly in your own vehicle despite you running a business that directly competes with them, is a pretty good move in terms of if you believe in your product. And yeah, they do cover different markets, right? Where you have your more long range, you have your geostationary satellite constellations and stuff like that, versus Starlink's very small mega constellation, or very low altitude mega constellation around the Earth. Different methods, similar product, but yeah, they still let them fly on them on Falcon 9s.
Exactly, yeah. As you pointed out, there is Eutelsat, SES, you have EchoStar, you have Viasat that have all previously launched on Falcon 9. And again, as pointed out, the next 03 p.m. power launch is Monday. So this is not unusual. It seems like it because Kuiper is, I guess, considered more of a direct competitor in the style of their network with the low Earth orbit mega constellation, but it is still not unheard of. D, Creative Bytes is wondering, what's the cloud cover at the launch site? Might we be able to see changes in plume color as the rocket ascends?
Well, I am looking up at the sky and I'm seeing a pretty bright moon, a whole bunch of stars, and I mean, I guess if I look for them, I can see two clouds in this. There are a handful of clouds in the sky, but there are not very many. It is going to be a clear night. We should have a view of this for a good long while.
Wow, hopefully as good a view as we saw for the Dragon landing. And by the way, if you want to have some of that Dragon merch for yourself, you can do that at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We have the new phone cases that are out. You can see there the Shield Against Splashdown one with the Dragon coming down. I know it may have been a bad view for you, D. It was a great view for some of the other people out there on the West Coast that sent us awesome photos. But there it is. You can have that on your phone case there. You can see it for the iPhone, for some of the Samsungs there. You can check out the exact phones on the shop as well. So you've got a couple different options there. You have the Dragon one, or if you're more of a Starship person and you want protection from your heat shield, well, at least protection for your phone, you've got your refuge against re-entry there with the Starship tile case as well. So check these out, see if your phone's compatible, and get one for yourself at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We are coming up now on under 8 minutes to go. Let me just thanks to people here. Booster 1058 7.5, Revhead with the 10 pounds. Mr. Fluffy saying best coast revenge, long live that. Long live ship 26. I'll say that. I'll skip that middle part. Space Pope then 8. Cree saying apologize and sing. There was nothing in there about singing. And Booster 1058 coming in with the 10. Thank you very much, everyone, for that. After the launch, I will give my lament to Kevin Michael Reed. And Lords of Random saying we've got a Pope train, folks. There we go. D is quite a poignant night here before we let you go, because July 16th is a very important date in spaceflight history, right?
Yes, it is the anniversary of the Apollo 11 launch. I sort of hadn't kept track of the date, and I saw someone in chat mention it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it is. So it is always a great reminder to think about the past and look towards the future.
Exactly. And we'll let you look at your cameras and get everything set up for the launch night. D, good to have you back in the field, and we will talk to you after the launch.
See you on the other side.
All right, there we go. We are now about 6 minutes away here. Cody, what is still to come in this latter part of the count?
Right. So, in the latter part of the count, we don't have a lot of things going on until we get a little bit closer to T0 here. By now, at T-minus 7 minutes, Falcon 9's engines began to chill down, much like how the strongback will chill down the towers. The strongback will chill down the lines to feed the second stage. The engine bells actually have to cool down to do a little bit of the same, make sure that they don't crack and that they're thermally conditioned for the cryogenic propellants to flow through those channels in the engine bell. Then coming down to T-minus 1 minute. Oh, I'm hearing in the back channel, we've actually had RP1, stage 1 RP1 load is complete with that late load capability. As soon as Falcon 9 is fully fueled, they go, because they don't want a lot of those cryogenic propellants to boil off. So they launch right away. Moving down to T-minus 1 minute, the flight computer will take over control of the flight. It'll be monitoring all sensors on the vehicle, making sure that the vehicle is healthy right before flight. The propellant tanks will pressurize and get ready for the flight. And then at T-minus 45 seconds, the launch director will verify go for launch. At 3 seconds, we'll see ignition, and then we'll have liftoff there.
There we go. In just a couple of seconds, we will also see the retraction of that strong back. So we'll see the clamps that are underneath those fairing halves open up, and then it will lean back 1.8 degrees, which may not seem like a lot, but it's enough to get it just out of the way. So once it ignites, it will throw all the way back, but protect all of those umbilicals and cables and everything on there to allow them for the rapid reuse that they have at this launch pad. And there we go. Now we can see those clamps opening, so strong back retract is underway. And it will do that very slight lean as it goes as well. So there we go. Everything proceeding up to this point with about 4 minutes to go until the launch of the Project Kuiper KF-1 mission. This is not your ordinary Kuiper launch, as this is the first Amazon Kuiper internet satellite launch on a rocket other than Atlas V. This one, of course, on Falcon 9, the first of 3 that are scheduled to launch aboard this SpaceX type of vehicle. The booster, you see it all nice and frosty now, but it's also nice and clean underneath, as this is booster 1096, we believe, -1 on its first flight. So a new booster enters the fleet tonight as well. And as we saw from photos released earlier, these are not new fairing halves there. You can see the active and the passive halves have both flown before. We are now getting into that deep part of the count. We should be getting call outs shortly as they continue to wrap up the propellant loads. So as pointed out, the RP1 load on stage 1 is complete. Hopefully we will hear the liquid oxygen load completions in the next couple of minutes as well. And a reminder, if you are out there and you have a camera or your phone or something with you, take some pictures or videos, send it to us on our social media channels. We'd love to see it. This is a northeasterly launch if you're wondering which direction to go outside and take a look at. What other callouts are we getting right now, Cody? How are we doing with fuel loading?
Well, it looks like we're just about there. As we get further and further closer to launch, they're going to complete that second stage LOX load. Stage 1 LOX load is complete, as we said before. But yeah, that second stage LOX should be the last thing that we see load on the vehicle. Once they have that, they're going to make sure they're all good, and then they're going to send it. As I said earlier, Falcon 9 has a very unique late load capability that allows them to launch like right after they're fueled. Oh, and I just see the call out there that the stage 2 LOX load is complete.
There we go. So we have a fully fueled Falcon 9. Yes, it started with stage 1 wrapping up. The stage 1 RP1 load wrapped up at about 20 minutes before launch, and now we have the fully fueled vehicle. And of course, we are now getting the gas line closeout. So they're purging all of those gas lines of anything remaining in them because, extra oxygen in the area near flamey bits is usually a bad day for a rocket. 90 seconds to go now until the launch. So there are those gas closeouts confirmed. And as pointed out, next thing will be Falcon 9 entering startup. The onboard computers will then take control of the count. At that same time, that is also when the tanks will pressurize to their final flight levels, bringing these 24 satellites hopefully into space just 1 minute from now. So we will keep an ear out for Falcon 9 entering startup. And there we go. The onboard computers now have control. The next thing that we will be hoping for is the go for launch from the launch director. And we have a go for launch. We are now just about 30 seconds away from liftoff. Everything proceeding as planned so far for the KF-1 launch. Again, once it does lift off, we will be quiet and let you listen to the sights or to the sounds and view the sights of Falcon 9. It does take a couple of seconds for the audio to reach our microphones at the Launch Complex 39 press site, which is about 3 or 4 miles away. 10 seconds to go. Next up should be the deluge system, the water at the base of the rocket activating, followed by the ignition of those 9 Merlin 1D engines, and liftoff of Falcon 9 carrying 24 Kuiper internet satellites. Go, different internet satellites, go. Has quite the crackle tonight. 90 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 already traveling faster than the speed of sound and already passed through Max Q. That was the maximum aerodynamic forces on the vehicle on its way uphill to space. You'll see now the plume expand as it gets into the thinner parts of the atmosphere, and we'll start to see the beautiful blue color as it gets higher up as well. Right now, they are starting to chill down the Merlin vacuum engine, just like they did with the engine bells on the first stage, to prepare it for the events coming up in rapid succession, just about 30-ish seconds from now, which will be MECO, main engine cutoff, followed by separation of the first and second stages, and that will be followed by SES-1, second engine start 1, where they will ignite that Merlin vacuum engine. Oh, that beautiful blue. And next up will be MECO. There it is. There is main engine cutoff. Next up will be the separation. And that looks like ignition. There we go. That is ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. There's the slight replay of it, because again, there's that bit of a delay from the SpaceX feed to our live feed. You see some of the puffs there, even of the cold gas jet thrusters in the plume of stage 1. That will now work its way back down to hopefully land on the drone ship downrange and then be brought back and recovered. And today's drone ship, by the way, is a shortfall of gravitas. Look at that beautiful color, that expansion of the plume, that nearly full moon helping out with the view on that. Cody, you gotta love it.
Oh, you gotta love it. You know, just seeing as we get higher and higher in the atmosphere, there's less and less pressure containing that plume, so it just goes everywhere and just creates a very beautiful, very unique view. You won't see this anywhere else.
We have separation of the fairing halves. SpaceX is not showing the fairing, what's inside the fairings or any part of the deployment as part of a request from their customer, which is Amazon Kuiper. You can still see those fairing halves in the top right of the screen there floating away, though, so we do have that visual confirmation of it as well. Now, as that continues to fly nominally, it is worth noting we did see the same flash that everyone else did on screen as well. So I'm sure we'll be discussing that and taking a look at that in the replays. But so far, stage 1 continuing to propel normally from what we can see. Stage 1 working its way back down to the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. Cody, I'm sure you saw that too.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything just in case it was a camera glitch, but I did see a slight flash there, and a couple people in the back channel are saying that that too. We are hearing that in the back channel there was nothing on the SpaceX views that showed that. So we'll go back and look at we'll see.
Exactly. But just noting, we did see it with everyone. So right now, though, we could see stage 2 continuing at this point. Everything looking good. And these are views, again, from D out in the field. So these are our cameras continuing to track stage 2 all the way up. And this stage is expected to burn for quite a while. That one will hopefully have SECO about 8.5 minutes into flight. That is after the expected landing on the drone ship. So again, very similar to what we see for the Starlink timelines, even though these are the Amazon satellites. Next up will be the entry burn on stage 1. So how exactly does that slow the vehicle down for landing, Cody?
Right. So the stage 1 entry burn, while it is helping slow down the vehicle, a lot of what it has to do is actually protecting it from heat. I'm going to do a lot of people who watch the Flame Trench know EJ, and EJ has this very famous line of supersonic retropropulsion. Now that's the term that's used to describe when the rocket is coating itself in its own plume of flame and soot. And because that flame and soot is actually cooler than the plasma building up on the outside of the vehicle as it enters through the atmosphere. So we're coming up on that pretty soon here. But there we see it.
Here you go, the center engine first, and then we see on the graphic first, and now the visuals on the video of the 3 engines. So all 3 of those engines ignite. There we go. Also, D capturing the entry burn too. DY's coming in hot tonight with the views. And we'll cut back to the SpaceX view here to see it cut back down to a single engine. And then engine cutoff. There we go. Now the plasma there through those grid fins as it works its way towards the drone ship.
Yep,
And again,
and the
we don't-
first stage. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The first stage, one thing I'd love to talk about here just for a second, the first stage will actually try and glide back. It's going to use its body and angle itself to actually glide slightly back to the drone ship there. So,
Yep, we don't have visuals of the actual second stage itself. Again, that's at the request of Amazon. But we will have views, hopefully, of that first stage landing on the drone ship. A shortfall of gravitas. It is now 13 kilometers in altitude. Still 2,000 kilometers an hour, but slowing down very quickly. The flight termination system has been safed on stage 2. And stage 1 is now below the speed of sound, going transonic. 7 kilometers in altitude. Hopefully we will get video from SpaceX shortly of the landing. Right now you can see the live telemetry though. Now under 1,000 kilometers an hour. So we should see there on the graphic, you can see the engine igniting. So it looks like we have landing burn. Now we have the visual of it.
And this is the final
You'll see
burn
those
that this
grid fins
booster will
turning.
see before touching down on a shortfall of gravitas.
Drone ship audio.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
There we go. A new booster entering the fleet, earning its Dash 2. Welcome to the family, 1096. Absolutely beautiful. And it looks like
On the
from the
money.
numbers that we could see there, the second stage information looked pretty good up to that point as well. I love that you see the water now shooting onto the deck. And we have confirmation of nominal orbital insertion. So as good as the numbers looked is as good as the numbers were. Ooh, cool. Cody, that was quite the launch, huh?
that was quite the launch. I always love to hear the ripping and tearing of the engines through the atmosphere. It always gets me so hyped up. No matter how many Starlinks I see, it's always such a cool thing to watch.
It really was. And this is something I haven't been able to say in about 2 months. D is currently working on putting together some slow-mo replays, the return of the slow-mo replays. In the meantime, let's take a look at the regular speed ones for now. Shout out Carson with the very quick turnaround times here on these. And you can see this is the view from our fleet cam over at Rusty's at the port. Great place to grab a bite to eat and drink and watch them do all of the booster operations out there. So thank you for allowing them to put his camera on there, too, in fact. This is this one we could say turning night into day, not day into more day. Beautifully lighting up the Florida skies there. Absolutely love it. And you've got another booster in port that just came back as well from its most recent from the drawer flight, right?
Yeah, so that booster there just came back. I believe that is that just read the instructions, or is just read the instructions on?
Short ball
Okay.
gravitas
Yep.
just caught the booster.
Nice.
So yep. And again, it's the contrast of a brand new booster and one that has seen 20 plus flights. It's quite a contrast if you've ever seen them in person. This is our other view from the fleet, out at Fleet Cam. It's a great spot as well to go view a launch too. If you don't want to go all the way out to the jetty and things like that, there's some restaurants along there. That's a great spot to stop and view. And now from our robotic cameras that we have at the KSC press site. If that doesn't show you the brightness of those 9 Merlins, I don't know what will. Have you seen any launches, Cody?
You know, I was out for the Flight 5 of Starship, but that is the only rocket launch I've been able to see in person. So one of these days I do have to head down to the Cape and see it. I really do want to see a night launch. I know it's not so fun for the photographers out there on the team, but being able to just see night turn to day, I got to see that at least once.
Yeah. I mean, you're again kind of spoiled there, having seen Starship as your first one, but
that's what Max says. Every other launch is ruined.
I mean, they're up there, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, I'd be hyped seeing any launch. I'm just so excited about this stuff always. So
yes. And as we see the sun, so to speak, there, the artificial sun, it flies by the, ready everyone chant with me in chat, moon, moon, moon.
Moon, moon.
Absolutely gorgeous night out tonight for it. Great views there. And this is from one of our other cameras that DY's set up out in the field. A nice view over the tree line, which is a great shot in the reflection in the water tonight too there. Absolutely beautiful. The Banana Creek right near the turn base in that area is stunning to begin with. Add in a rocket launch reflection. Oof. Thank you, chat, for chanting along with me. And there we go. And we were working on that slow motion replay that we will get to see towards the end. Let me thank a couple of people here. Lisa, getting a couple items from the shop, getting one of the phone case covers, saying thanks for all of the coverage, go NSF. Thank you, and may your phone be as protected as the thermal protection system. And then also getting the other phone case as well, too. That's awesome. Thank you. Enjoy them. There it is. And then Jeremy saying, landlord and neighbor are listening too. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. The more people get to see this stuff, hopefully the more people get interested and excited about it, the better.
Yeah, I mean, live streams like these way back in the day on Twitch, watching DOS and EJ on Twitch there, that's how I got into this stuff. So I love that NASASpaceflight's able to kind of do the same thing, but now in modern day with this new cadence of launches.
Now, I see people asking about the flash. We've taken a look at some of the replays. Let's see. Here is a replay of it, slowed down a bit from our tracker. Yeah, it was a very interesting flash there, that orange flash. Not sure what that looked again. From what we've seen, the engines, at least for landing and everything, were fine. The orbital insertion was nominal. But that was an interesting looking flash. I will
Yeah,
say,
it's
go
very
ahead.
interesting. It doesn't seem like it was a super big problem, right? Because they were able to reignite for landing. Um, I I almost wonder if it was something like a part of the heat protection system on Falcon 9 falling off potentially towards the motor, and then it reflects off that and creates that large thing, or if it is just something in the motor or in the Merlin engine there.
Yeah. From the point of the SpaceX feed, there was a green flash on screen about the same time, but it didn't seem like there was something with the rocket. Uh, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's camera related or rocket related, but um, huh. This is not Bowl. I can tell you that. This is not Northrop Grumman's most recent SRB test. So interesting things to keep an eye on there, and of course we'll see with slow mo as well coming up. Apparently, there's something I owe. I'm sorry to say it. I have to do this. Kevin Michael Reed. Hi. Hi, Kevin. I have to apologize because of the support from our viewers. I'm doing this against my will with the duress that I am under from our amazing viewers. I am sorry. I am sorry for calling your joke bad and lame. Um, that was a very good pun with the Bez dispenser, like Jeff Bezos and the Pez dispenser, from ships such as Ship 26, which your take on that was not an L. Are you happy? Are we good now, Kevin? This is what you wanted, people. This is what you supported. This is what you did. Look what you made me do. Oh my gosh.
I'm not under any sort of contract like that. So that was not a good joke, Kevin. And Ship 26 is not a good ship.
I didn't say it this time. I didn't say it this time, Kevin. No, Jay, as the person in charge of making shorts, we do not clip that and release it as a short. No. That is not happening. Unless Kevin wants to edit it himself.
That would be out of spite there. That would be pure spite.
Although I'm sure at that point he would just ask Chris Bergen to whip out Bandicam and do it that way. So. Oh, no, Jay, you don't have to. You don't have to edit that, Jay. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer, but no, you're good. Oh, it's a good thing Kevin is not on comms tonight as well. Let's see here. Again, unfortunately, we will not get to see the physical deployment of these satellites. And it's interesting, Cody. Amazon has been quite secretive with their deployments of these and with their visuals on them.
Yeah, it is a bit weird. You normally see this type of secrecy out of Department of Defense missions. You know, this is a very similar treatment we see with NRO missions, but you're like, oh, I get it. It's a spy satellite. But with a communication satellite, I almost wonder if it's like not wanting visuals on certain parts of the vehicle because of maybe technological developments. But then again, they're flying on a SpaceX rocket, which is their direct competitor. So I'm not really sure who would benefit super much from seeing the satellites there. So it is a very interesting choice.
But they did the same thing with Kuiper as well. KA-01 and 02
Yes.
did the exact same thing where they didn't show it. And for the first flight, they didn't even announce information about the exact orbit, about the deployment times. All of a sudden, it was, we'll update you when it deploys. So that was a little different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes that can be like a thing of, sometimes companies like to almost control when they display the information if there's some sort of failure. So I can kind of get that for the first launch there. But yeah, it is very interesting that they're continuing to do this for these launches.
Yeah. Maybe someday we'll see what they look like. Again, it was a little bit as well, even for SpaceX before, we saw them deploy, then we didn't see onboard feeds for a bit, then we saw them showcasing their new deployment methods. So
I
I'm
am
not
very
sure.
interested how they do their deployment mechanism. If it's very similar to the retention arm that's on Starlink missions, or if it's something different there. I'm very curious. I wish we could see it.
Yeah, they eventually released the KA-01 deployment footage, but I'm very intrigued to see if they release the deployment on this particular vehicle. If the deployment mechanism is the same or different to Starlink, what they use for Kuiper. Because again, as we saw from the image earlier in the broadcast that they posted, the satellites are manufactured at the Amazon Kuiper processing site that they have over at KSC, and then we eventually saw the fairing rollout and everything from it. So it wasn't like this was a Hangar X special. This was a work of Amazon as well as SpaceX's fairings. Here's an interesting question from Crazy House Media saying, do you think the flash could have been a fueling hiccup? Maybe an aggressive reignite? I mean, that was during the launch phase. I'm not sure we'd seen any of the
Yeah.
engine kind of need to reignite at that point, but
Yeah,
what are your
unless there was
thoughts as
some
a
sort of
motor guy?
thing. Yeah, I said motor earlier. My wheelhouse is making solid rocket motors at my university, so I apologize for saying motor over engine. But yeah, it could have been maybe they throw a little bit of igniter fluid in there. But I don't I don't know. But I really don't think it would be an ignition issue as it was in flight. I don't even know if do they have the capability to like relight mid-flight if they have an engine failure? That'd be a very interesting question there. But yeah, it almost seems like it might have been just gave it a little too much gas.
Yeah, and again, it's worth noting that the reignition sequence is with the TTEB, the triethyl aluminum triethylborane. That's the green flash. There was no green
Yes.
flash there. It was just the orange flash.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, it should be green if it was the igniter, but it wasn't, which was odd.
Right, otherwise it would be, it's green. In this case, I think it's safe to say, it's orange.
It's orange.
Anyway, it could be absolutely nothing. So whatever it is, the most important thing at this point is that the satellites so far are in their nominal orbital insertion, and coming up will be the second engine start about 52 minutes and 43 seconds into flight, and then that would be a 3-second burn followed about 3 minutes later by the deployment sequence start of those 24 Kuiper satellites. D, how was it being back on the Space Coast for a launch? All right, we'll get to D in just a moment, but in the meantime, Cody, I'll thank you for joining me as well. Thank you, Cody, for hopping on comms and answering all the questions with me. Great job.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's really cool to see a new era of large constellations of satellites here from Falcon 9. It was very cool to research for this one. So thank you for having me. It's always great to be here.
And we had you guys out in the field. Not sure if we have you back for comms, but welcome back to the Space Coast, and thank you so much again for rolling out.
Thank you. It was a really good launch.
And Carson, thank you for pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and producing tonight's broadcast as well. Appreciate it as always. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I've been your host for today's broadcast of the KF-1 mission. We will see you right back here at NSF, and for the first time in a long time, let's enjoy some slow-mo on the way out. Have a great one, everybody.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes! MECO down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?